Henry Ford, the farmer boy, built a billion-dollar Ford empire from scratch. So, how did this scrappy kid with calloused hands and a wild dream go from fixing watches to churning millions of Model Ts, the car that put America on wheels? Let's get into this incredible story and see the secret behind Ford's success. The Ford Motor Company, an iconic American automaker, holds the esteemed title of the world's fifth largest, based on its global vehicle sales. This automotive giant was born on June 16, 1903, in the Michigan neighborhood of Dearborn, near the world-famous city of Detroit, brainchild of the visionary Henry Ford. On July 30th, 1863, Henry Ford breathed his first breath on the farm where his father lived, now called Dearborn, Michigan. His entire family lived and worked on the farm his father, William Ford, owned. Henry was the oldest of 6 children, so he was only expected to take over his father's job and inherit the family business. On the other hand, Henry showed little interest in continuing the family farm or taking over from his father. In that time, farming meant hard, slow, and demanding work. Henry did his fair share on the farm, but he hated the idea of it. His feelings were clearly shown when he said, "I never had any particular love for the farm. It was the mother on the farm that I loved," emphasizing his love for his mother over the hard work of farming. Henry wasn't particularly fond of school, like many other kids his age. He barely made it past 8th grade because he liked learning independently. The most important thing to him was his interest in physics. He became deeply involved with the complicated working of machines from a very young age. Henry's father gave him a pocket watch when he was 12, but he didn't just use it to measure time. He took it apart and put it back together in minutes, and his friends and family knew him as a skilled watch repairman. Henry became very interested in motors after seeing a steam engine on a school trip to Detroit when he was 13. Building his steam engine by age 15 solidified his interest in mechanics as more than a hobby. Unfortunately, Henry's mother, Mary Ford, passed away unexpectedly from an illness. The loss of his mother only served to strengthen his bond with mechanics and to infuriate him towards farm life, which had become a shrine to his mother's cherished memories. Henry made a crucial decision when he was 16, despite his father's desires. With his possessions in tow, he said his goodbyes to the farm and went on a quest to find a different way of life. Henry Ford's exit was a big turning point that set him on the path to a future that would go beyond the rural area where he grew up. He had no idea that this trip would lead to the creation of the Ford Motor Company. Detroit became an economic powerhouse after the invention of the steam engine in the late 19th century. The city needed young, ambitious professionals who could contribute to developing its business landscape. Henry Ford chose to start anew and increase his knowledge of machines as he saw the world changing around him. As his first employer, he worked for the illustrious Michigan Car Company Works in Detroit. The business produced streetcars. Unfortunately, his employment was terminated just 6 days after he began. Henry was eventually hired as an assistant at the machine shop owned by James Flower and Brothers after a lengthy application process. The weekly salary was a meager $2.60. He hated using the money from his machine shop as he had no other means of support. Because he was interested in timepieces, even as a young boy, he moonlighted as a jeweler. Every night for 5 days, he would spend 6 hours repairing and cleaning timepieces. Henry had several jobs lined up, and this additional one was bringing in $3 each week. 1885 was a watershed moment in Henry Ford's personal life as his business began to explode. The following year, after they had met at a New Year's Eve celebration, he proposed marriage immediately. His father presented him with 40 acres of property for Henry's wedding. Unfortunately, Henry did not choose to convert it into fields. His thoughts were different. A small flat became their new home in Detroit in 1891. At this point, Henry was reading a British magazine about Nicholas Otto, a German expert who had made a new petrol engine. This gas engine was not needed for the long 30-minute startup time, and it worked better than most steam engines. This new tech was becoming more well known in Europe, but not so much in the US. Henry was interested in it. He got lucky and met someone in the city with one of these petrol engines. He was interested in the petrol engine, but having an electric spark power made it hard to understand how it worked. To that end, he applied to work as a night engineer for the massive Detroit power business Edison Illuminating Business. He was sure he had to solve this puzzle. His monthly salary was a respectable $40. 1893. Henry and Clara welcomed their first and only child, Edson Bryant Ford. 3 months after Edsel's birth, Henry's dedication and expertise earned him a promotion to chief engineer and a weekly salary of $100. Henry achieved a significant milestone in the same year by crafting his first working gas engine. His ultimate objective was a wagon devoid of horses, and this victory was a necessary step towards that end. At 1:30 in the morning, on June 4th, 1896, he completed his gasoline-powered test vehicle. This was the result of his hard effort. He named it the quadricycle. The quadricycle, though a crude contraption consisting of 2 bicycles side by side, powered by a gasoline engine, proved to be a successful experiment. However, it faced challenges, including a lack of gears for forward or reverse movement and a cooling system, making it prone to overheating. Henry, undeterred, made several adjustments, most notably adding a cooling system. He sold the vehicle for $200, using the proceeds for his next significant project. Henry crafted his second experimental car with a nod from the Detroit mayor, finishing it by July 1899. This newer ride was beefier, sturdier, and weighed more than its predecessor. One memorable morning, Henry took William Murphy, a well-to-do lumber merchant, for a spin on his latest creation. Impressed by the vehicle's performance, Murphy wanted in on Henry's automotive journey. They sealed the deal with a handshake, birthing the Detroit Automobile Company on August 5th, 1899. But alas, the company hit a speed bump and flopped a year later. Henry and the stakeholders were at odds, squabbling over whether to soup up the cars or pivot to making passenger vehicles. On top of that, relying on different companies for parts caused production delays. Henry got the boot. He shifted his focus to racing cars, sensing an opportunity to flex his automotive muscles. Racing fever was spreading in the United States, offering a stage for Henry to flaunt his wheels. Knowing that bagging investments from his Detroit Automobile Company buddies might be a long shot, he eyed the racetrack. Ford's racing cars smoked the competition quickly, boosting Henry's street cred and winning over potential backers. This laid the foundation for the birth of the Ford Motor Company, with Henry steering the ship as the chief engineer. But tensions flared up again as he kept the pedal to the metal on race car production, irking investors who dreamt of cranking out passenger cars, prompting Ford to take a backseat. He declared he'd never be under someone's thumb again and bid farewell. The company, once Ford Motor Company, got a makeover and became the Cadillac Motor Company under Leland's watch. Henry and ex-bicycle racer Tom Cooper stuck to their guns, cooking up racing cars. In 1902, they unveiled the Ford 999, an 80-horsepower beast steered by Barney Oldfield, a former bike whiz. Oldfield, who hadn't driven a car before, smoked Winton's ride. Henry Ford was backed by a squad of 11 investors, led by an excellent Detroit auto dealer, Alexander Young Malcolmson. Together, they birthed Henry's third automotive venture. Originally tagged Ford and Malcolmson Limited, they trimmed it down to the sleek Ford Motor Company in 1902. After a couple of rough rides in his first attempts, Ford was dead set on not hitting another roadblock. Now, back in those days, owning a car was like having a golden ticket, but only if you were rolling in dough. but not for our man Ford. He dropped a bomb on his associates and investors, saying, "I will build a motor car for the great multitude, so low in price that no man making a good salary will be unable to own one." Ambitious much? Ford had a knack for pulling in bright minds who bought into his dream. Before landing the Model A, he must have gone through more designs than outfits at a fashion show. He kept tweaking over the next 5 years, introducing the Model N. But not just the design, but how these babies were put together was the real game changer. Learning from his past fiascos, Ford figured out that having one place responsible for most of the car parts was the secret sauce. During a Chicago trip, he set up shop in Detroit and got the assembly line idea from a slaughterhouse in a light bulb moment. Yes, you heard that right. The guy found inspiration next to hanging slabs of meat. In 1904, fueled by more cash, Ford built his factory, hired over 300 people, and started playing with the assembly line idea. It took until 1906 to hit full speed, but production shot up by 5 times when he did. The Model N was flying off the shelves. Then came 1905. Ford set up his manufacturing joint, cooking up engines, transmissions, and everything else for his cars. Around that time, he stumbled upon vanadium steel. It was 3 times stronger and lighter than what they'd been using. Guess where it ended up? Yes, the Model T. The Model T was Henry's dream. A car for Joe Schmo. Priced at $850, around 21 grand today. It wasn't exactly pocket change, but within days, they had 15,000 orders. The Model T went on a rampage, making the Ford Motor Company numero uno in the US. In 1910, Henry dropped a new factory in Highland Park, Michigan, ready to churn out over 100 Model Ts daily. He was a fan of efficiency. He tinkers around, does some experiments, and by 1913, the assembly line is humming like a well-oiled machine. No more workers doing the cha-cha around the car. Nope, now the car moves down the line, and the workers stay put. Building a car lasts from 12 hours to just 90 minutes. By 1914, Ford was cranking out over 300,000 cars a year, more than all the other guys combined. Between 1910 and 1916, the Model T production goes from 20,000 to almost 1 million. Every other car on the street is a Ford. Fast forward to 1919, Henry's had enough of investors poking their noses into his business. So he buys them all out, leaving him with a fat wallet and the most prominent car company in the world. Later, he hands the reins over to his son, Edsel. But let's be honest, Henry's still the puppet master. In 1943, and tragedy strikes. Henry's son kicks the bucket from stomach cancer. 2 more years later, Henry passes the torch to his grandson, Henry II. He kicks back, and in 1947, he's out for the count with a cerebral hemorrhage. But Ford's legacy lives on. Today, Ford Motor Company is worth a cool $45 billion, still cruising as one of the biggest car makers globally. How did the story inspire you? Do let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.